Back to Apromore now, and select our configurable model, and go to the design menu where we want to define a model questionnaire mapping. And this will bring up the CMapper app, and there'll be some sort of a security dialog. So that's just because Java applets are like that. And what the CMapper does is that for each variation point, you see them labeled down the side, it has a table of under which conditions, and the conditions are the answers from the questionnaire, under which conditions should the variation point be rewritten as a particular kind of gateway. So I'll demonstrate that with the second two variation points, since they're a little bit easier. Now, start by loading the questionnaire we created earlier. And if I hit show QML, I get a list of the questions and each of the facts that these questions determine. Now, for the second question, which we're going to do first, it's the simplest case because the answers are yes and no. So we're asking, is there a cache box available? Now, if there isn't a cache box, we require exact payment. And that means that one of the branches in the model doesn't apply because we're never going to have to issue change. So let me go to variation point 3. Now I need two conditions, the yes condition and the no condition, so let me add an extra configuration here. F4 is yes, and F5 is no. So I have these two logical conditions, which when the question is answered, will either F4 will be true or F5 will be true. And if F5 is true, we can't overpay. So I'm going to remove that sequence flow from the model if someone gives that answer. And that's all we need to do. If the cache box is present, then both of those sequence flows are valid in the model. If it's not, then we eliminate that overpaying option and just have exact payment. And that's all we need to do for variation point 3. It's fairly simple. It's just deciding which sequence flows would be present. Now, variation point 4 is just the join that corresponds to variation point 3. So let me just do exactly the same thing. And we don't get change if we don't get change. And we're done there. Okay. Now, variation point 1 and 2 have three different possibilities. You might be paying with cash, you might be paying with credit card, you might be paying with FPOS. And all the combinations of these three add up to 2 to the 3, and only 8. And then we can eliminate one of them because at least none of them being present isn't a possibility. So there's 7 possibilities. That would be a pain to have to key in by hand. So there's a shortcut for combinatorics. If you hit the toggle button, it replaces the sequence flows. Rather than giving just tick boxes, they now become logical conditions that you can actually enter. So if I look at the question 1, F1 is true if cash is supported, F2 is true if they've got a credit card imprinter, and F3 is supported if there's FPOS facilities. So I can enter that condition directly under that particular flow. And if I hit toggle again, it will generate all the conditions right for you, rather than actually needing to work in that error-prone way yourself. Now, the other thing you can set is the kind of gateway may change. Now, in the configurable model, we use an OR gateway, assuming that, let's say, people are paying at a restaurant and one person is going to pay some of the bill with credit card and the other person is going to pay by cash and both kinds of payment are supported in one process. You might, for example, say, no, that's not the way we work. We require one bill per table, and therefore there's going to be one payment method per table. So if you were going to do that, the gateway type, rather than being an inclusive OR, will be an exclusive OR. Only one of the payment types can be done at once. So you can actually select that. So move through and make these XORs. And if you've got a lot of them, there's a scroll bar here to get to the last one. Okay, that's variation point 1, assuming that we have a policy of only one kind of payment. And I'll do the same thing to variation point 2. And we're done. Now, having the variation point set up, what we need to do is we need to save the CMAP file out, and it'll go into the same WebDAV directory that we put the QML file in. So just save that, and give it a name. Okay, that's saved. And the last step we need to do is this link button. What this will do is this will take the process model and will add a link so that the process model can say, oh, I've been mapped. I have a questionnaire to model mapping, right? It's over there. It actually stored as a URL that points to the WebDAV. And while you could edit by hand, this is exactly the kind of thing that computers ought to be doing, because it's hard to get that URL correct by hand. So it bumps the version number up from 1.1 to 1.2, saves it for us, and we're done. Okay, that's the CMAP out of the way. So if I go back here, and I have to refresh it, and then you can see that our latest version is 1.2. So this is now a configurable process model with a mapping to the questionnaire and what the answers to the questionnaire ought to do.